Hey everybody, welcome back to Hope Neighborhood Learning Center. Today we're going to continue on our journey of exploring this Ballot smart contract. If you've been following up to this point, you have created a smart contract here in Visual Studio and then connected that to the Remix IDE. This smart contract allows the creator of the smart contract to enable voting for certain addresses, allow delegation, and then to vote on a particular proposal. And so we're going to walk through how this smart contract works from a practical perspective. Let's go ahead and create some proposals. And what I'm going to do here is not create a real proposal. I'm just going to create proposal names that will work with our smart contract. Smart contract here. I'm going to call it Get Bytes Demo. .sol, and so we should have that in here now. Great, you all can see that. And then we're going to go ahead and take what we've learned up to this point to create a smart contract. So remember, we always start with our license first, and if you don't know which license to choose, I provided a link in one of the previous episodes to the descriptions of each license type. And then we start with Pragma, Solidity, and then we're going to go ahead and say version greater than 0.70, less than 0.90. All right, and it looks like I forgot my period here. And there. Okay. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and write our contract. And then let's call it Get Bytes. And then we're going to create a function and call it Get Bytes Now. And then Get Bytes Now 1. Pure public returns. We want this to actually show us the number when we execute the smart contract. And I'm just going to ask it to place one proposal name, one proposal name in the array. Basically what I'm doing here is adding one name in the proposal array at a time, and I want to do this because it'll just be easier to copy and paste into the smart contract. This is not efficient, but this just helps us run through the demo and understand how this particular smart contract works. And so the next step here, we will go ahead and call this the bytes address, or call it BA1. You can call it whatever you want. And then bytes 32. And we'll call it, so proposal A. Then here we go. Cool. And so what we're going to do next is copy and paste this a few times. And we will rename each of these. So I'm going to call this 2, and then we'll call this BA2 as well. And then the variable BA2, and then we will call this Get Bytes Now 3, and then we will call this BA3 and BA3, and then we need to change the proposals here, so we'll do A, B, and C. And it looks like I made a mistake here, so let's fix that. So you should have what I'm showing on my screen here, which is a simple smart contract to convert the proposal name. And so we have proposal A, proposal B, and proposal C. So there are 3 options that the people are going to be able to vote on within this particular smart contract. And so I've already connected to Remix D, but actually I'll just walk through that again. So go ahead and open up a new terminal, scoot this down. All right, so you can see this, and so I'm going to type in remix d-s dot. And now I will be able to reconnect to the Remix terminal, or the Remix ID. Now we should be able to switch to the local host. All right, so we're switching over to the local host, and there you go. You can see all the smart contracts that are inside my Visual Studio IDE. And so we just did the get bytes demo.sol. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that and open it up. Everything looks good. And then, so if you recall from previous episodes, you come over to this little Solidity icon or compiler, and then go ahead and compile the get bytes demo. We'll go over to this section. It automatically loaded that contract. I'm actually going to go all the way up to the top. I want, and the reason why I'm going to the top is this address that I'm going to deploy with it is the owner. And I'll explain a little bit more of that in the voting or the ballot smart contract. And so you'll notice in the virtual machine, my amount of ether for this particular address has gone down. So it's deployed here. So we're going to go ahead and click on these call buttons. Perfect. So now you can see that we have proposal A, proposal B, and proposal C. We can copy and paste these proposals into our ballot smart contract. Well, we haven't deployed that yet. So let's go ahead and head back over to our folders and open up the ballot smart contract that we created. And let's compile that. And you'll notice here, in order to deploy, we need to add proposal names. It's kind of small font here, but it does say bytes 32, gives an empty array, and then says proposal names, which is what we had stated in our smart contract earlier. Now what I'm going to do is open up the proposal names that we gathered from the get bytes smart contract. I'm going to copy and paste each one of these into the proposal names. Now, I want to, before deploying it, I want to get all 3 proposals into the array, and then I will click deploy, and all of them will be deployed at once. So the key factor here, though, is the format. You want to use the square brackets, and then you need parentheses, double parentheses, around each proposal name, and then a comma between each proposal name. And so I will go ahead and go back and forth here so you can see me walk through this and follow along. Cool. So you have just watched me copy and paste each of the proposal names into the deploy field for the ballot smart contract. And as a reminder, I put the square brackets around the entire array. And then for each value, each proposal value, I have parentheses on each side of that particular value then a comma, then another set of parentheses around the next one, comma, another set of parentheses around the next one, ending with the opposite square bracket. And so your contract should be ready to deploy. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and then we will begin to experiment with the smart contract. I have deployed the smart contract, and you can see at the bottom here, we got a green check, so everything went through okay. I'm going to go ahead and collapse the get bytes smart contract because we don't need that information at this point. And then we're going to take a look here at the ballot, and we're going to be experimenting with this. Let's start with delegation. In order to do that, we need to be on account number 1, which is what I was mentioning earlier. So let's just confirm that we are on that account. Now what we want to do is for the owner of the contract to give the right to vote to address number 2. And so what I've just done here is given the right to vote to address number 2. You saw that we have a green check, and so that is good. That means that worked out just fine. And then now what we can do is delegate to that address. So we want to move back up to the accounts, which are that list of addresses. So I'm going to just back up. And then we're going to click on the third from the bottom. Cool. So let's confirm we're on the last, or the third to last, I should say. And then let's go ahead and go down to the bottom. And then we're going to copy and paste that address. So I clicked on delegate, and it looks like that transaction went through. And so we're going to go ahead and select the second from the bottom here. And again, we want to delegate to that same address. So we don't need to change the address. I'm just going to click delegate, and then that went through. And then we're going to go ahead and click on the last address. And then let me change the view here so you can see the terminal. So I'll click delegate, and that one went through. Okay, so all our delegates went through. And so now the next step is to vote. So I'm going to make sure that our second address is selected. And so it looks like we are good there. And then I'm going to go back to the vote section and select the proposal I will have the number 2 address vote for. And so let's just say we're going to vote for proposal 0, which again, the proposals are designated by their position in the array, so 0, 1, and 2. So I'll click vote. So that went through. And one thing to note here is you'll look at the sort of terminal area here in the bottom, and it will mention, that a true transaction was mined and executed, and the transaction hash from and to, the amount of gas, and the execution cost. And so basically the thing that you can learn from this is that every time we do one of these transactions, we're writing to the blockchain, and that costs something. So something to keep in mind as you write your smart contracts is it seems like, it seems to me that figuring out how to develop applications that do a lot of the organizational work off-chain, and then leading to a single transaction done on-chain, or maybe a minimal number of transactions done on-chain. So that's where it gets tricky, and it requires you to really get creative to figure out how to manage all of these transactions. So let's go back to the proposal, the ballot, and take a look here at this particular address. And so I'm going to make sure I'm going to grab the right address. Yeah, okay. So we know address 2 has voted. I'll plug that in there. And then I'm going to click on voters. So it says that person voted, and it says that their weight was 1. So I do find that interesting. It says they voted for proposal 0. So if we click on winner name, then we can see, I'm just going to look at the last 4 digits before all the zeros, 2041, because it's difficult to read all of that. And then we can see 2041 is proposal A, if we look back at our get bytes. And so then, let's see, proposals. And it shows here in proposals, proposal 0, which is proposal A, there's a vote count of 1. And then if we were to click on winning proposal, we can see the winning proposal currently is 0, which is proposal A, which was the first position, or which is the first position of the array. Another button you probably notice here is the chairperson. So that is the person who created the smart contract. In this case, it was our first address, and that matches our first address. So let's go ahead and add another vote. I'll click back on the first address, and I'll have the first address vote for the proposal B. Great, that transaction went through. So now we can see, let's copy that address. And then let's put that into the voters. Cool. You can see that that address voted for proposal B. It's still showing proposal A as the winner in both scenarios here. So that's interesting. So right now it's a tie, but it's showing the first one voted for as the winner. So that is something to work through here. An improvement that could be made during the tie scenarios. So let's go to the next address here. And then let's have this third address vote for the third proposal. Oh, look, we have an error here. And so what this error says is, let's see, no right to vote. And so we need to give this address the right to vote. So let's go ahead and go back to our primary. First, let's copy that address. Go back to our primary address, the address that created the contract. All right, so then we need to copy and paste that into there. And then go back to the primary address and then give the right to vote. Great. So now that address has the right to vote. So we'll go back to that address and we'll have that address vote for 2. And then that transaction went through. So let's see, proposal 0 has 1 vote. Proposal 1 has 1 vote. Proposal 2 has 1 vote. And so proposal 0, as a reminder, is proposal A. Proposal 1 is proposal B. Proposal 2 is proposal C. These are related to the positions within the array. And you can see that here when you compare the name, the Bytes name, to our get Bytes smart contract here. And so right now I have proposal 2 called, and so we can match that against our get Bytes smart contract. And so proposal 2 would be the equivalent of proposal C, which if we look at the last 4 here before all the zeros, just to make it easier on ourselves, 2043, 2043. So those are one and the same. So that looks like it's working properly. So now it's interesting, it still says a 0 proposal, so proposal A as the winning proposal, which again, that's something I think we can improve upon with this particular smart contract. So let's go back up and let's go ahead and change the balance here. First, we need to give address number 4 the right to vote. So we need to go back to our primary address, copy in that new address, and give that address the right to vote. We get a green check, so that went through. And then we'll go back to that address number 4, and then we'll have that address vote for 2. And so let's go to winning proposal. And great, it switched over to proposal C, which in the array is position 2. And so now we have a winner, a true winner. Now, again, like I said, we definitely need to add something to our smart contract to prevent the tie scenario and not call the first entry the winner, who is a tie. So if we click on winner name, all right, and so we clicked on winner name, and you can see here the 2043. If we look back up here at our get bytes and we look for the 2043, we can see that again that proposal C won the total number of votes. So let's go ahead and go back to the delegate. So that was interesting in that it didn't actually work. So let's open this up and see what's going on here. So previously we noticed that the delegation actually worked when we looked inside the log here. So I'm going to go back up to where we did the delegation and read the details of what occurred there, because we were expecting that the address number 2 to count as a total of 4 votes. And then when we entered in the bottom 4 address, one of the bottom 3 addresses, that address was said to have already voted. So here is an expanded view of the delegation. So let's look at the from address here, from 0xdb. So that was our last one here. And delegated to 0xab, last 35 CB2. Yeah, that matches. So it was properly delegated, but I would have thought we would have been able to see an increase in voting power. So let's copy address number 2 and put address 2 in the voters box and click on it. So it shows that address number 2 voted for proposal A because it says vote 0, but its weight remains the same. Now this is odd because if we look back at our smart contract, we had said that each time a delegation happens, you increase the voter's weight, which I thought we said. So let's just make sure that we did what I thought we did. So this is the section where I thought we were adding it. So if delegate voted plus the sender weight. So I'm not sure why the voting power is not being increased. So let's click on one of the addresses that we had delegated to. And then if we click on that address, or if we put that address in the voters box and click on voters, we can clearly see that this voter's weight is 0, and it counts as though this person voted, and it counts as though this person voted for proposal A, and it shows the delegate being the second address. So I can show you it's 0xab, go up to the top here and confirm 0xab. But let's go ahead and click on that address. And when we go down to here, voters, paste that in, and we can see the weight of that voter is 1, and that voter voted for 0, which is proposal A. So all of that match in terms of the vote and whether or not the delegate had voted and the voter had voted, all matches. But what doesn't make sense to me is why the weight is only 1. So let's go ahead and do one more experiment here. Copy the 5th from the top address and put it in the give to right to vote section. Then let's go back to the address that created the smart contract, which is the very top one. We're going to give the right to vote to that particular address. Okay, great. That went through. So now let's go ahead and go back up to here. Select the second address, and then we're going to go back to the 5th address. So we had just given this address the right, 5th from the bottom. So we just gave this address the right to vote. So now what we want to do is we want to delegate to the second address, which is the AB address. Let's make sure we have the 0xCA account activated. So that's activated. So I'm going to go ahead and transact the delegation. So that went through. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at address number 2. And it looks like we are looking at address 2. And it still shows a weight of 1. So if I expand that in the terminal area, it shows a weight of 1, shows no delegation. Let's see here. If I put voters, it shows that I delegated to address 2. I delegated a weight of 1, and then it voted for proposal 1. Oh, so that's actually different. So previously, okay, I think I know what I did wrong here. So let's go back up to address number 2. Let's copy that. Okay, so you'll notice the weight of 1. So let's go to the winning proposal. It's back to the 0 because I delegated the vote of the 5th from the bottom to the address number 2 or account number 2. Okay, so I know what I did wrong here. So let me walk through it. So hopefully it's not too confusing. So let me click on the very bottom address. If I select that one, I put that address in the voter box here. Click on it. You'll notice a weight of 0, and I had delegated to that address. So what happened here is I had accidentally forgot to give the right to vote to that particular address. And so then when that was delegated to address number 2, the weight given to address number 2 was 0 rather than a 1 additional weight. And what I'm noticing is that the weight is actually not populated in this zone because this is for that specific address, but the total weight is calculated into the winning proposal for the number of votes that was given to that delegate. So when I had delegated the 5th address from the bottom here back to address number 2, the winning proposal switched back to proposal A because now that proposal had 1 more vote than it had before. But I was required to give that address the right to vote prior to that address being able to delegate to address number 2. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sorry that was a little bit challenging there, but this is part of the process and part of learning. So just I'll walk through from top to bottom here. So the delegate function requires the address or the account to desired account to delegate to be highlighted, and then you would have to enter an address here that you would wish to delegate to, and that address must have the right to vote in order for them to cast a vote on a particular proposal. The chairperson, or the person or address that initiated the smart contract, is the only person who can give the right to vote to one of these addresses. And so you would have to make sure that you have this account highlighted after copying one of the other accounts and then pasting a different account into this give the right to vote section. Click give the right to vote, and that creates a transaction where you give that person the right to vote. If you already gave them the right to vote, then you'll see this error, or voter already voted once, or you'll see something like no right to vote if that person doesn't have the right to vote when you vote. This third box here is the vote, and the way that the person casts the vote is you have to be on that particular address where that address is given the right to vote, and then you select the proposal based on its position in the array. So in this case it's 0, 1, or 2. And if you forget which address that you had made the chairperson, you can click on chairperson and it'll show you which address that is if you lose track. And then here you can look at the proposals and the vote count per proposal. So we have a vote count of 2 for proposal 2, which is proposal C. And then for proposal 0, we also have a vote count of 2 because I had delegated that one. And then for proposal B, or proposal 1 in this case, we have a vote count of 1. Then you can click on voters and see how that particular voter voted and whether or not they delegated to a different address. And then in the end, you can see the winner name, and you can compare that to the get bytes array. And then on the bottom, you can see that the winning proposal is proposal A. That is a tie between proposal C and proposal A. So that's something that needs to be improved on this smart contract. And that is it. So let me go ahead and just run through one more delegation, just so that way I can show you the right way to do it. So I'm going to click on the address that I want to give the right to vote. Then I'm going to go up to account number 1. And then I'm going to copy and paste that address that I'm giving the right to vote there. And since I am the chairman on the chairman account, I'm able to give the right to vote. So that went through. So let's make proposal A the clear winner. So I'm going to have this address delegate to the second account. So let's go ahead and go down to that address. Actually, let me just check it. All right, so we're on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to delegate to address number 2. All right, so that transaction went through. You can see our ETH went down to 99.9. And now that should mean proposal 0 has a vote count of 3. Beautiful. So now it's working properly and we're understanding how to use it. And so the error that I made, just as a reminder, is I forgot to give the right to vote to some of those addresses that we had delegated to, so their weight was 0, so it didn't count on the total vote count. That's it for today, and thanks for joining me as we learn Solidity together.